Alright, so in this video, we're going to change out that rotor right there. I've already got the one on the passenger side changed out. So first what we're going to do is we're going to pull this bolt out, drive this wedge out, remove the caliper. I've already got the hub, or the locking hub, taken out, and the hub nuts and retaining ring taken out of there. So once I get this off, I'll be able to slide the hub off. Then we'll get to the driving out the lug studs, and I'll be right back. All right, once you get your hub and rotor off, you'll notice on these lug studs, there's plenty of meat on the end of them for you to strike them with a hammer. And when I say hammer, I mean a hammer. We got a steel bar here welded to a 3-pound sledge. Just line it up and knock them out. I'm going to do that 8 times all the way around. Then my hub will separate from my rotor. Then we'll be putting the brand new rotor on. I'll be back. Okay, I've got all of them out, and I've had this apart before because I took this and cleaned it all up, and yeah. So it's going to lift right out. Come over to the new rotor and set right in. Then I'll flip it upside down and we'll get our lug studs started. Now, I do it a little differently than a lot of people. A lot of people are going to press them in or whatever. But I've got a E-swing hammer here. And I'm going to take this E-swing, and it fits right in there just about perfectly, so I can get a good swing on it. And I can smack it and get it started. And hopefully not smack my hub or my rotor. It happens though. And it gets it started pretty good compared to how they just set in there. Ignore that little spot on my rotor I just tapped. But I'm going to go around and do all that. And once I get them most of the way in, I'll be back and show you how I cinch them down. Alright. Got my new spindle installed. I had to take all this apart. Then I looked on the other side and realized this backing plate here is supposed to be on the outside. Spindle goes on the brake caliper bracket, then the dust shield goes on. So I'm going to take this apart real quick, switch it around, and I'll get back to you. Alright, I got that back installed the proper way now. Now I'll slide my hub and rotor on and show you how I finish drawing the lug studs in with the least amount of, I don't know, I guess you'd say harshness. Alright, I got my hub and rotor back on there, and I wanted to show you, I think I may have mentioned it in another video, but I've got new hub washers and new locking ring and new outer washer. Somebody had put them together and ignored that little nipple on there, and they sheared it off. So there was basically no lockability in there. So we're going to put that on there. Make sure you grease your bearings and everything up real good. I didn't show it, but I re-greased my shaft real good in there. That way it's got plenty of grease to go around. Here, I'll be back. Now on that inner nut, be cautious when you're putting it in. That way, you know, because your four-wheel drive socket doesn't have a provision for the little nipple. So when you're setting it in there, be careful. You torque that down to 50 foot-pound while you're turning the hub. And what I do, I crank it down most of the way, spin the hub, torque it. Spin the hub, torque it. It'll usually torque about 3 times, or it'll, tighten up about 3 times, and then the torque is perfect. And you'll feel the perfect amount of drag on your hub and rotor. Now, I don't know if you can see it or not, but that pin is on that side right there, but it's not coming through that lock washer. So now you got to take that lock washer back out. And another step I forgot to mention, you torque that to 50 and then back it off 135 degrees. So it's about 90 degrees, and then, halfway between, another 90 degrees. So 45 to one side, 90 to another. That's 135 degrees. So, yeah. You're going to repeat the step where you torque it to 50 and turn it, and then loosen it. And then I'm going to final torque mine to 50 psi, or 50 foot-pounds, I'm sorry. Now you can see that pin is almost lined up with that lock ring. Now what you're going to do is back that nut off just a hair so that pin will line up with that lock ring, because that lock ring registers on your spindle. And then once you get it just right, you'll see right now I went back just a hair too far. So it's not sticking through there just proper. So, and you'll feel it on the lock ring when you're, sticking your hand in there. You can feel it on the pin or whatever. So now I'm going to tighten her up again just a hair. And let me look even better. Nope, that is right. That is protruding through there, so we're good. We're going to put our outer nut on there. Torque it down to 130 foot-pound. Alright, I got that all torqued. Now we're going to run these lug nuts in. And what I do, I take a washer, put it there, and run the lug nut on backwards, so the flat part goes against that. And if I find that I'm having a little too much resistance or whatever, I'll spray it with some liquid penetration there, some lubricant, and they'll just cinch right in. But I got 8 of those to do, and I'll get back with you. Now, you'll see that all my lug studs are drawed in. Everything went all right. I have no gap between the hub and the rotor all the way around. Once that's done, you'll put your caliper and your pads, your wedge, and your lock bolt back in. Once you get your lock bolt tight, I'd consider this job done. And I've also done the exact same thing on the other side. But if you'll notice, I've also been working on putting in a high steer setup with the spring eliminator. It's got the tension and bolt and everything else in it. I'm ready to put it on this side over here, so I'll show you that as I go as well. Now, what you do is you take your spring off, your spring retainer, you run your studs down in there, and it comes with the studs, a short stud, a short threaded end, and a long threaded end. The short threaded end goes into the knuckle itself. And then it's going to come with this heavy duty washer, and that washer is going to sit right there. And then you'll put your top piece on there. And sorry, I'm not a good cameraman with a cell phone. It's cold out here, I'm smoking and all that other stuff. But you'll grease all that up real good, and I'll do that, and then I'll set that top cap on there, and I'll be back. Now I've got my washer all greased up top and bottom. And then I'm going to take my top piece and set it down over the studs. And it's got a provision under it for the washer. Now if you'll notice how thick those things are, they're 1.5 inches, inch 0.25 thick, 1.25 inches. And you'll set that on there, and you can feel that washer through that hole, still moving around just a little bit. Lube them threads up right there so they don't gall up when I'm putting the tensioner in. And then it comes with this tensioner bolt here, and it's got an Allemite, so if you don't have enough grease in it, you can squirt some more in it later. And you just run that bad boy in there until, I think it says like 25 pounds of pulling resistance. Like if you go to the end of the knuckle and put it on 25 pounds, or there's no real clear instructions, but this kit came off of Evil Bay, and for the price it was, I couldn't pass it up. So I've saved up nickel and dimed because I want to get this thing under my truck and have it ready by winter time. But it's crossover steering, and it came with the heavy duty tie rod ends, the lock nuts, and the sleeve that's going to go in the DOM tubing. And I've done got one of those beveled over to start welding. And then there's the other stick, 60-inch stick of 1.5 inch DOM tubing, quarter wall, and it's got 1.25 inches or something like that, 1 inch inside opening. And I'll get it all put together and show it to you real quick. I almost forgot. I'm using my old tie rod up front just for a reference. But then what I almost forgot to show you too, it's got these cone nuts, and you're going to torque them down to about, I'd say 80 psi, because they're basically just a 1/4 or a 1/2 inch lug nut, 13/16 size socket, and I'll torque them down to about 80 foot-pounds. And when I get all that done, I'll show you how to adjust this right here. Sorry, camera. I'll show you how to adjust that right there. I'll take that front tie rod off and let you see how that is. I got her all torqued down. And another thing I didn't mention was under these cone nuts right here, you want to put you a little bit of oil under there so it causes some lubricity, so it doesn't sprawl on you or spall up, whatever they call it, when two pieces of metal rub together with a lot of friction. Use your little red Loctite down in there too. That way they don't ever come loose. But I'll start running this down and show you the tension on it. As you can see right now, that knuckle just flops pretty easy. Like if I just move it, it's going to want to keep going. But once you get that tightened up right there, it'll have some friction against it. Now I don't know if you can tell or not, but it takes a little bit of force to move this knuckle now. And it doesn't just keep moving. I mean, it does on that back end. So we'll just take and turn that down just a little bit more, and it takes a little bit more friction to move it. Keep working it back and forth, and then tighten her down, and you'll get the right amount of friction. You'll feel it. Once you get the right amount of friction, you'll run this jam nut down, and then you'll torque that to spec. But I will admit the kit that I got didn't come with any torque specs, so I'm going to have to look that up on some other websites on how much that torques to. And then you have your tie rod ends, And you got your adapters here. They actually go in the DOM tubing with your jam nuts. I got to put my alamites in the tie rod ends, but what I've done is I've used that front bar there just as a reference point. And I've got this stick of DOM tubing here. And the way it works, I need to bevel this in still, but it slides on there like that right there. And then this other end here will spin around and it slides right in there. And once it's all slid together the proper way, then you weld it around through here. Then you'll turn this to adjust your toe in and toe out, and then lock her down with your jam nut, and then it's done. And I just use this one for reference. So I'm done with it now, but I will say it is starting to come together and getting ready to go under the truck. I just have to finish putting the mounts on the truck because the truck is a 2-wheel drive and I'm converting to 4-wheel drive. But all in all, I'm very pleased. New brakes, highsteer kit, all new bearings and seals, new calipers, new brake pads, new wedges, and new wedge nuts. I think it's coming together quite nicely. Thank you all for watching.